So, tools of the trade. What do I use to make this content that you see before you? Well, it all, of course, starts on my computer, which we'll get back to later on because I have to use it quite a bit, actually. I have an Asus ZenBook. It's meant to be a pretty powerful editing machine that was used with Adobe, which also I use Adobe products. Surprise. Computer built for Adobe, use Adobe products. I don't think anyone's actually that shocked. But the first thing I do when I'm creating content, of course, is I start with a script. Yes, I like to talk about everything, or I like to think about everything that I'm going to talk about because I like to think. I'm not very good at it, but I like to think. All right. We're just being honest here. So I like to use Word just because, some changes have been going on in my life, but I have traveled a lot. I don't know what it's going to be like coming up, but having a laptop is very beneficial for the traveling feature, as well as having Word. It's downloaded onto my computer and I have all of my stuff on my hard drive and it's ready and good to go. All right. So writing scripts is a very short explanation for something that takes a very long time, and there's a lot of them. There's just a lot. But anyway, once I'm done with my scripts, obviously I set a date and I start filming. I love filming, guys. I really do. It's awesome. So, obviously there's a lot of equipment here that goes on. If you could see behind this camera, you'd see a lot of cables on the floor in a very small room, and it's not good. But anyway, so starting with my camera, I use a Canon 90D. For what it is, it actually is really great. It was meant to be a continuation of the 80D, which the 80D's idea was that it could span the gap between video and pictures. And the 90D took it just that step further and does it that much better. Never had the 80D, but loving the 90D, gotta say. And on it, whenever I'm filming content like this, I use a Tokina 14 to 20 millimeter. Yes, that's what it is. Okay. Which is very short if you know anything about cameras, because the 90D is a crop frame camera. For those of you who are not aware what a crop frame camera is, basically it means that the sensor is zoomed in a little bit more somehow. I don't know the exact details. I'm not like that kind of an equipment junkie. But basically whenever I get a lens, I have to multiply the lens millimeter that the focal length, that's what it's called, by 1.6 because it's a Canon. For others, it'll be something else, but for Canon, it's 1.6. All right, so audio. If you're not aware, I come primarily from an audio background, and because of audio, I fell into camera work and editing and this other kind of stuff. And I worked for a production company for a year and a half, which actually I'm just now at the tail end of that one. Yesterday, my day of filming, today here, was my last day. And I'm now going to pursue this entirely full time. But primarily, like I said, I am a sound guy, right? I did live sound for concerts and bands, worked with some pretty great people. So I do things a little bit differently. Most people, they will, and I advocate for this because it is so much easier, they just simply take a camera or a microphone and go straight into their camera. I don't do this. I take a much more complicated route that gives me so much more control, and I enjoy much better. So it all starts, of course, with a microphone. I use this. This is a PreSonus PM2 condenser, small diaphragm condenser microphone is the technical name for it. The only thing that you really need to understand out of that is that it being a condenser microphone, that it picks up from a distance much better than other microphones. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that one. So, like I don't like having microphones really like on me, and I don't want wires just because I think it'll look nasty. So I got one just behind the camera here that you can't see, and it still picks up my voice. Fantastic. So obviously then cables, and goes into what's called an audio interface. So a microphone is analog. We're all familiar with analog clocks where it's got gears and stuff, and that's what's going on here. It's taking an electrical signal and it goes into an audio interface. What an audio interface does is two things. Number one is a microphone has a very quiet signal, So it's got a volume control called gain that I can adjust the volume to get it to somewhere that I can work with and I can do some post-processing on. The other thing that it does, which is the most important part, arguably, is it digitizes the signal to be sent to my computer, which, oh, look, we're back to my computer again, where it goes into software. So that's it for the interface. There's a lot more that could be gone into that because different preamps, which is what adjusts the volume, the gain, are very different, and there are different ways, just there's a lot that goes on behind that, but I'm going to leave that for now, and we're going to move on to software. Recording software for audio is called a digital audio workstation, or DAW, or DAW, as I like to refer to it. I think that's kind of the minority of people, how people refer to it, but it really doesn't matter. Basically, all that it does is I can, like in a recording studio, like your music, they're taking multiple microphones or even just one microphone. They're recording it into software, and they have each track, is what it's called, that they can work with individually and independently, and they can adjust volumes of them independently after the fact. And it gives me so much more control because I can make it sound better if something went wrong or something's not quite how I want it to be. And of course, I got speakers that are built better than just your normal desktop speakers. They're meant to be so much better, more detail, and not color the sound in any way. And of course, using my computer, which iMotion is over here, has to have the power to be able to do that. So, dawns on me as I'm looking over my script here just a moment ago, that the interface I use is called the PreSonus AudioBox 96, and the digital audio workstation that I use is called PreSonus Studio One. We're on version 5 right now. Yes, I realize that my microphone, my interface, and my software are all PreSonus. Why is that? PreSonus is a great brand if you're on a budget, which when I was doing this at the time, I was on a very strict budget, and this is what I was starting with. Other things like my computer, and as you'll find out in a moment, my light, are meant to be much more top of the line. But getting back to PreSonus, they build very good things at a very affordable budget. So if you're just starting out, highly recommend. And the software, it's not a trial version. They have 2 versions. They have like the Pro and the Artist. I have the Artist version. It came free with my interface. And it's not a trial. It's not, it's a full version of Studio One, which frankly, a lot of companies aren't willing to do that, but PreSonus does, and that's why I've used them for this long, and it's been a great tool to learn on. So with my light, I decided I needed to go a little bit better because glasses, they tend to cause a bit of an issue. I could have used just probably any light, and if you actually go back to some of my first videos, I did use whatever I had, and it was not great. What separates the Aputure 120D Mark II, I want to say, from the lights that I was using is that it is a much softer light. Not to mention that it's much brighter and it's got the better color because I need it to be a little more daylight color, which is 5500 Kelvin, I believe. If you look at my previous videos, I'm kind of jumping around all over the place, so sorry about that. There are really harsh shadows around my glasses caused by my frames, and it looks really bad. Here with the 120D and I had to buy diffusion, which separates the light particles to the best of my understanding. It softens the light, so it can still get brighter, but it's not going to cause such harsh shadows. The diffusion that I'm using here that comes with it is the Aputure Light Dome 2. Yeah, apparently there's on-second generations of everything at the moment. Yeah, so there's really not much to it. It's got full functionality, it's got brightness. It doesn't change color though, which is actually very important if you do some research. Yeah, so spent a little bit more for that one just because glasses, harsh shadows. And of course, when I'm done, as I mentioned earlier, I'm an Adobe user. Something I am, when I was getting into this, I was using, I don't even want to talk about it. It was harsh. And when I got into it, I was given Adobe for free. Basically, somebody else paid for it because I was helping them out. And it just made sense. Everything about it made sense. Not to mention the fact that you know, being a photographer here, also, you know, I got to take thumbnails. It's got, you know, an entire suite of things that I can use, like Photoshop and Lightroom. And I mean, I use Illustrator too. It's pretty much all I use. But having all of these things are incredibly important. Yeah, so, you know, this was probably a lot of information. I know that I talked really quickly, and I'm very sorry about that, but this stuff excites me. Not just the marketing aspect that I talk about, but also the equipment. I believe that the equipment makes the difference, and having the equipment is going to set you up for success at all times. So with that, I'm going to leave this video where it is. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much. I know this one was probably a little bit harder to watch, but thank you so much. I truly do appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.